Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we have received our first EX Forces banner. So we have the youthful pupil and fanatical student, Diablo and Rimuru. Those are some serious names right there. They are our first EX characters. They are also part of the Forces category teams now. And they seem to be very, very powerful when paired together in their perfect setting. But is it really worth it to summon for them? And to that I say, actually probably. Because, in the perfect scenario, Diablo plus Rimuru hits insanely hard, even for an AoE unit. And one good thing to note about this before we go any further is that if you manage to pull either one of them, or even the new Yom and Murin, there are missions in the game that you may or may not have already collected, but they will give you free currency to level up these EX characters to 100, because they take different types of crystals. So if we go to awakening items, we have these crystals right here, and then we have... actually, I used the ones on Diablo, so we just have these 10 right here. They gave you 5 for Rimuru, 5 for Yom, 5 for Murin, so that's why we have 15 total, 10 left because I haven't pulled Yom or Murin yet, and then they gave us 5 for Diablo. It takes only 5 to level them up from 80 to 100. So if we go into my companions, you'll see that Rimuru right here is level 104 because we pulled him at 80, right? That's his base level. We had the free shards to get him to 100, and then I bought the extra dupe of him to get him to 104. So basically, like 120 is the new 100. So it doesn't take anything really special to get these characters up to 100. They get all their, they don't get any traits at all until you start going over 100. So we go to Awaken, we go to Effect List. Like you can see that 5-star, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they don't get anything. They get stats. But then once you hit the 6-star Awakenings, that's when you start getting like the normal traits that a 5-star unit would get at level 84. So now it's 104 for these EX units. So that is something interesting to note, but they are giving us enough to get them to 100 instantly. So their stats are good. They have their whole, awakening board done. That means their ult is, full power essentially. So, I mean, that's great. That's great for these characters. So we're up to 300% ult damage right here. They also have the extra ability to use double ult gauge to do double damage. Which, I mean, is hit or miss, because, this meta is focused on blues. Blues don't get you the most ult gauge in the world, but, if you're stacking for a while, you can definitely get up to a double ult. But what do they do, in case you didn't watch the live stream, in case you didn't watch the, coverage video? So, AoE water physical, 300%. Good. Decreases all targets' defense by 5% for 2 turns. Also good. Uses 200% of Secret Skill Gauge to change to an EX ult, is what we're going to call this now. So a normal ult and an EX ult. The EX ult does 600% damage at the cost of 2 full ult meters. So the icon in game changes to when it's an EX ult. This little circle right here gets gold and it gets an extra little aura around it. It looks pretty cool. So that's, one key feature of the EX units. His first skill, our very first physical attack buffer, 65% for 1 turn, and then lowers physical resistance by 20%. It's an 80-point skill, though. This is a very expensive skill. And then his second skill is an orb change, which, I like orb changes. So orange to blue. So he covers kind of like what Water Shuna would do. So you could run them both together because he is obviously a water unit. Shuna buffs ults and also lowers water resistance, which helps him hit a little bit harder. She's also changing orange orbs, but it means he also can pair well with the free-to-play Water Rimuru from 2.0, who changes greens to blues. So, and that works out pretty well. His Valor trait, when you swap this guy in, you seal magic-changing battle skills like orb changing, like Rewind. So that's pretty good. That's a really good skill in Valor trait, and Valor Cup. His actual, personal trait, 6 combo of blues increases his own crit damage by 4%. I don't know how useful that'll be. Maybe he's a good link to Hinata, but this beatdown battle, there's a lot of crit resistance, so you shouldn't really be asking to crit anyways. So this is not as useful for him, but maybe as a link for another unit, like Hinata, who wants to crit against units that can be crit on. Secret skill enhancement, so this will be once I get to level 120, I get another 20% alt damage. So that's 320% technically, 640% if you use the EX alts. I mean, that's really powerful, guys. Normally, like, this is 5%, right? On Violet, you get an extra 5% alt damage, not 20%. That's a huge buff right there. And so, I mean, if you're doing the double, the EX alt, 640%, Violet's doing 480 as a single target, and he's doing 640 to everybody. So he does have the capacity to out-damage single target, you know, but you do have to have a double ult meter. That is something to keep note of. He increases his own Pierce power if Gopta is on the team, which this Gopta can be run with on his team, and then he is a self-buffer. He can do a lot of damage. I tested him out on Diablo's team, I tested him on Watermelon's team, I tested him on Shuna, Protector Shuna's team, and he certainly does the most damage on Diablo's team, and that's because of a few major things that we'll go over now. But as far as him as an individual unit, he's fairly competent. He's an orb changer. I like orb changing. It keeps the team consistently running, especially on a stacking team like this one. And then, you know, this is a good support buff while also buffing himself. So, I mean, you could put this Rimuru on the fire team because they're physical as well, and that'll give Violet 65% extra physical attack plus, you know, physical resistance down. It could work pretty well, especially if you don't have, like, Shizu, like the Christmas Shizu. This could be a fairly good replacement for her. She may not be, you know, Rimuru may not be a fire unit, so you're not getting maybe the EX buffs to give to Violet, but is still a good buff. And, you know, 55% versus 65, and that's all that skill does. 20% physical resistance down is just icing on top of the cake. So I definitely will use him on the fire team when his showcase comes. And then orb change is orb changing. But moving over to Diablo, also 104, so the baseline like is now 100, and the top tier is 120. So this is where things get convoluted. I'm going to make a video going over the whole forces thing on its own in like its own separate video, probably in tomorrow, because it's very confusing for a lot of people to wrap their head around this. So, increases the amount of damage done by Fount of Wisdom Force characters to water characters by 60%. So, this is a double caveat thing. The battle character must be on the category Fount of Wisdom, and you must be fighting a water unit. So that's why this beatdown battle is against a water Rimuru, and even though this, you know, the Rimuru we just got done talking about is water, you're going to do 60% extra damage permanently to that Rimuru, because that Rimuru is on the Fount of Wisdom Force. And let's go check that out, and I will show you where you can find that. It is here on this first page, Fount of Wisdom. These are the forces, these are the categories if you're a Dokkan player. Fount of Wisdom, Commander, and Octagram. So currently we only have really 2 leaders that are force leaders. That's the free-to-play Chloe and the Diablo. And Chloe leads Fount of Wisdom and Shizu's Will. So a bunch of the kids and Shizu. And Yuki. But going back to Diablo, so if this Rimuru is paired with Diablo against a water unit, you're doing 60% extra damage. If you're not on the Fount of Wisdom Force, you don't get it. If you're not fighting a water unit, you don't get it. So you could take this Rimuru against Ifrit. You're not going to get the 60% buff because Ifrit is not water, right? But you could take this into Kabi, right? And the Rimuru will do 60% extra damage because Kabi is water. So that's how this works. It gets very, very specific. But if you manage to meet that condition, you will do a lot of damage. A lot of free extra damage. It's a permanent buff. It's start of turn. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do anything. It just exists. And you just do 60% extra damage. And then, as a second part, he buffs the Fount of Wisdom and Primal Demon category force characters' attack and defense by 20%. So this is new, because protection characters never used to buff defense. They only buffed attack. They would buff, like, water and magic, or light and physical attack, but only attack. So now we're starting to buff defense stats as well, which makes us a little bit more tanky. Also, 20% is a hefty stat. So, this Water Rimuru, paired with this Diablo, is getting a 20% attack and defense buff while doing 60% extra damage to water units. So, if you're taking this Diablo and you're leading the light team, and they are not Fount of Wisdom or Primal Demon, you gain nothing. Nothing, because he wants to be run on these, he wants to lead these categories. So you want to make sure that you can at least make one of your DPS units a Fount of Wisdom or Primal Demon Force character. Now his actual skill is Light Raphael, but on crack, because low decreases all targets' secret skill damage resistance until the end of battle by 15%, and that stacks forever. So Raphael does the 50% resistance down plus the pierce. Diablo is just stacking 15, 15, 15, 15, 15. And we know how fast like blue teams can stack, right? We've got Veldora, we've got Shuna, we've got Milim. Like, we know what they can do. So you can get like 8, 9, 10 stacks of this, 150% ult resistance down, and then if you already have Raphael, his 50% will stack because his is a temporary and this is a permanent buff, so you could be at 200% ult resistance down. That's be crazy damage. He also increases your skill cap by 30, which is interesting because everyone else is doing 40-point skill cap, so there is a slight nerf there. And then also buffs your skill point gain for blues by 100 up to 500%. So that's still the same for most of the blue protectors. But, you know, this ult resistance down will help anybody, right? It's not specific to water units like Milim. It's not specific to space units like Veldora. And it's definitely not ultra specific to Shuna, who needs Pierce and Stun to activate both of her powers. Any unit that is going to nuke that has an ult will benefit from you lowering an enemy's ult resistance. And it's everybody's ult resistance, not just one target. Everybody. So even AoE units are going to do a lot more damage. So I think that's really good. It makes him a very good general use blue protector. Now, his general use is cut, because if you don't fall under these two categories, you're not going to be doing as much damage as possible. So that is one, discredit to him, is that he is specific to only these categories. He doesn't just lead magic. He doesn't just lead water. He leads Fount of Wisdom and Primal Demon. And Fount of Wisdom, I think, has like 4 units right now, and Primal Demon has 7. So it's not a big supporting cast for him. So that's the only thing to keep in mind. His Valor trait is the same as Shuna's. Like, if you have 100% ult gauge, or if they have 100% ult gauge, you lower the resistance, or you increase the resistance of your allies to single target damage. And then his actual trait, when you have 70% or lower HP, increases your attack by 4 up to 6%. It's kind of like the Veldora traits protectors. With you have low health, you get extra attack. So that's very good. And then if you get him to 120, just like Rimuru, he gets the enhanced guidance trait, and it goes up by 5% for his attack and defense support, and then his supporting attack buff down here. So supporting attack, divine protection. If he's in a support slot, he buffs Fount of Wisdom and Primal Demon by 7. That will go up to 13%, and this will go up to 25% at level 120. So, specifically wanting to run these two categories to get the most out of your stats against a water unit to make use of that extra huge damage buff right there. He is good, but he is specific. And until we get more units added to more categories, he is quite limited. But I still think that you can make good use out of his ult resistance down. But I don't think that's reason enough for you to summon, because, again, this category system is new, and it's going to take a while. And there's, again, not a lot of units. So I don't think he's necessary. This Rimuru, I think, is better because of the physical support buff and the orb changing. He has more general use than the Diablo will, leading a team versus being a support or a DPS unit for that matter. So I think he's good. But again, like, he's the first EX character. I don't know if every unit going forward is going to be an EX character as well. But he seems to be pretty decent. So I think he's worth it. Diablo, only if you have this Rimuru. I guess is how we'll put it. If you got lucky and pulled both, then great. If you got fairly lucky and pulled Rimuru, great. If you only pulled Diablo, I might tell you to go a little further to pull Rimuru, so you can ensure that he can do the most damage possible. But, you know, that's just the suggestion. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as should you summon on the banner, I would give it about a 7. A 7 out of 10. Like, you can summon, it'll help you, but, you know, certain things do drop its value down a little bit. But, you know, you could always do what smart people do is wait until all 3 banners are out and then take your pick. So that's my suggestion for most players, is probably to maybe wait, see what else comes out, see what the other EX units do, and then make your decision. But I think they are strong units, very strong units together, fairly strong, and hit or miss for Diablo right now. But I have to get to testing them, I have to do the showcases, and then we'll really see how well they can perform inside and outside of their specific team. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Let me know how your summons went, if you did summon. I know a lot of people got lucky on this banner. I got fairly lucky. I got him in 90 pity. So I wouldn't call that the worst thing in the world. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you later. Also, one thing to note before we end the video is that the 4-star Awakening Bazaar, they upped the amount of times you can exchange the contract stone, the shards, for battle and protection characters. They doubled it, so you can do 10 now. So if you've already bought these, you should still have 5 remaining for each one. And if you can, you should buy them, because this is going to reset tomorrow night. So, I mean, this is an easy way to get 5 here and then get another 10 tomorrow for each one, if you can swing it. But if you can, do it, and if you can't, then oh well, you can't. But don't let them go to waste, just like the coins, don't let them go to waste. But yeah, that's just another PSA for this video. Bye, guys.